Admiral Vexithara stood on the bridge of the Imperial flagship Eternal Glory, her 4 eyes scanning the holographic displays with practiced efficiency. The Zephyrian Empire had ruled the galaxy for over 3,000 years, and in all that time, they had never encountered anything quite like this. "Admiral," reported Subcommander Clix, his tentacles dancing nervously over the control panel. "The objects are still there. Our sensors cannot properly classify them." Through the massive viewing screen, Vexithara observed the strangest collection of vessels she had ever seen. They appeared to be constructed from various metals, some shiny, some rusted, all seemingly held together by what the ship's computer could only describe as unknown adhesive substance and excessive hope. "Are those decorative lights?" asked Science Officer Zeph, pointing at one of the smaller vessels that blinked with colorful patterns. "Impossible," Vexithara replied. "No civilized species would waste energy on non-functional illumination during space travel." The largest of the strange ships bore markings that their translation systems struggled to decode. After several minutes of processing, the computer announced, "Vessel designation appears to be UES Cosmic Joke. Warning, name suggests possible mental instability in creators. Captain Miguel Bucky." Rodriguez scratched his head as he stared at the massive alien ships that had just appeared out of nowhere. His coffee mug, which read "World's Okayest Captain," sat forgotten on the arm of his patched-up command chair. Boss," called out his communications officer, Jenny Park, from her station that was mostly made of salvaged computer parts and determination. "Those ships are doing something. My equipment is going crazy." "Define crazy," Bucky said, though in his 3 years of commanding the Cosmic Joke, he had learned that crazy was often just Tuesday in space. "They're scanning us with some kind of beam. Should I scan them back?" "Can we scan them back?" "Well, our sensors are actually just the security cameras from the old mall back on Earth. But I rigged them to look outward, instead of inward." "Do it." What happened next would be remembered in Imperial records as the Great Communication. Disaster of Stardate 47.5. Jenny accidentally activated the ship's entertainment system instead of the sensors. The result was every speaker on the Cosmic Joke blasting Rick Astley's "Never Gonna Give You Up" directly at the alien fleet. On the Imperial flagship, chaos erupted as the transmission hit their communication arrays. The song's simple but repetitive structure caused the Empire's advanced translation computers to assume they were receiving the most complex diplomatic message in galactic history. "Admiral," shouted Clix, his tentacles now tied in knots of confusion, "the translation system is attempting to decode what appears to be a 17-layer diplomatic greeting, with embedded cultural significance spanning 47 different emotional contexts." The main computer began smoking as it tried to process the meaning behind "Never gonna give you up," "Never gonna let you down." Emergency lights flashed, as backup systems struggled to handle what they assumed was humanity's most sophisticated communication protocol. "Perhaps," suggested Science Officer Zeph nervously, "they are declaring their eternal loyalty to us." "Or," countered Tactical Officer Grix, "they are announcing their intention to never surrender in battle." Admiral Vexithara felt a headache forming behind her primary eyes. "Open a channel. We will respond with our standard First Contact Protocol 7. Meanwhile, on the Cosmic Joke, Bucky was frantically trying to remember what he was supposed to do when meeting aliens. His crew gathered around him, offering suggestions that ranged from helpful to completely ridiculous. "Should we offer them food?" asked Chief Engineer Carlos Santos, wiping grease from his hands with a rag that had seen better decades. "Do we even know if they eat food?" replied Dr. Sarah Chen, the ship's medical officer who had trained on Earth but learned most of her alien biology from science fiction movies. "Maybe we should ask them if they come in peace," suggested Navigation Officer Mike Thompson, who was 19 years old and still convinced that space travel was just an elaborate video game. "Everyone shut up," Bucky said, not unkindly. "Jenny, can you make this thing work for actual talking instead of accidental music?" "I can try, but our communication system is basically 2 tin cans connected by hope and determination. Do your best." The Imperial fleet received what their computers registered as a response to their greeting. Unfortunately, what they actually received was Bucky clearing his throat, followed by him saying, "Testing, testing, is this thing on?" which the translation system interpreted as a complex philosophical inquiry about the nature of existence and the operational status of reality itself. "Admiral," reported Clix, his voice strained. "They appear to be questioning the fundamental nature of being and asking us to confirm whether the universe is currently functioning properly. These beings are clearly highly advanced," whispered Science Officer Zeph. "Such profound philosophical concepts in their opening statement." "Admiral," Vexithera straightened her ceremonial robes. "If these strange creatures wanted to begin with deep philosophical discussion, the Empire would not be found lacking." She activated the communication array and delivered what she considered to be an appropriately sophisticated response. "Greetings, unknown entities. We are the Zephyrian Empire, rulers of this galactic sector. We acknowledge your inquiry into the operational status of existence and can confirm that reality is currently functioning within acceptable parameters." On the human ship, this message came through Jenny's makeshift communication system as a series of beeps, buzzes, and what sounded like someone gargling mouthwash while speaking underwater. "Did anyone understand that?" Bucky asked. "I think they said something about reality and parameters," Dr. Chen offered. "Maybe they're scientists? Or philosophers," suggested Carlos. "My grandmother always said aliens would probably be really into philosophy." "Your grandmother thought the mailman was an alien," Mike pointed out. "She was right about other stuff." Bucky decided to take the direct approach. "Hello, alien friends. We are humans from Earth. We come in peace and we have snacks." This message, transmitted through Jenny's creative interpretation of standard communication protocols, reached the Imperial fleet as a declaration that included references to friendship, planetary origins, peaceful intentions, and something the translation computer could only classify as nutritional offerings of cultural significance. The bridge of the eternal glory fell, silent as the officers tried to process this information. "They are offering us food, Science," Officer Zeph said slowly, "as a gesture of friendship. No species has ever offered us food as a diplomatic gesture," Tactical Officer Grix noted. "This is either the highest honor possible or a declaration of war through confusion." Admiral Vexthera considered her options. In 3,000 years of galactic rule, the Empire had developed protocols for every conceivable first contact scenario. Somehow none of them covered what to do when unknown aliens offered snacks and played music that caused computer systems to have existential crises. "Maintain position," she ordered finally, "and someone please restart the translation computers. I have the feeling this is going to be a very long day." On the cosmic joke, Bucky waited for a response while his crew debated whether offering leftover pizza to aliens counted as proper diplomatic protocol. None of them realized that they had just accidentally initiated the most important first contact in galactic history, or that their simple friendliness was about to turn the Empire's understanding of civilization completely upside down. The stage was set for what would become known throughout the galaxy as either the greatest diplomatic success or the most magnificent disaster in the history of interstellar relations. Knowing humans, it would probably be both. 3 hours after the initial contact, Admiral Vexithara had managed to establish what she generously called basic communication with the human vessels. The translation computers had been restarted 17 times and were now held together with what the engineering corps called aggressive maintenance and what everyone else called hitting them with wrenches until they worked. "Admiral," reported Subcommander Clix, "the human vessels are requesting permission to demonstrate their capabilities." Vexithara's secondary eyes twitched. The humans had somehow managed to turn every standard diplomatic protocol into something resembling organized chaos. Their leader, who insisted on being called Captain Bucky despite the computer's protests that this could not possibly be a real military designation, seemed to treat interstellar diplomacy like a casual conversation between neighbors. "Very well," she decided. "We shall demonstrate the might of the Zephyrian Empire first. Perhaps a show of our superior technology will help establish proper diplomatic hierarchy." The Imperial fleet moved into formation with the precision of 1,000 years of military tradition. The flagship's quantum plasma cannons emerged from their housings, crackling with energy that could vaporize a small moon. Reality-bending shields shimmered into existence, causing space itself to bend and twist around the vessels. The entire fleet phased partially out of normal space-time, existing simultaneously in 17 different dimensions. Impressive, Captain Bucky said to his crew as they watched the light show. "They're definitely showing off. Should we be worried?" asked Dr. Chen, who was trying to scan the alien ships with what was essentially a very expensive thermometer. "Nah," Bucky replied confidently. "If they wanted to blow us up, they would have done it already. Besides, they seem polite. Their ships are bending reality," Mike pointed out. "That's probably not normal." "Nothing about this situation is normal," Carlos observed from his engineering station, which was currently held together with duct tape and what he called engineering prayers. "But hey, at least they haven't shot at us." On the Imperial flagship, Admiral Vex Thara waited for the humans to respond with awe, terror, or preferably both. Instead, her communication officer reported that the humans were transmitting what appeared to be enthusiastic approval. "They are saying, 'That is really cool,' and asking if we can do it again but with more colors," the officer reported, confusion evident in his voice. Science Officer Zeph leaned forward. "Perhaps their species expresses fear through requests for visual enhancement. Or," suggested Tactical Officer Grix, "they are too primitive to understand what they are witnessing." Admiral Vexithera decided to give the humans a chance to demonstrate their own capabilities. She was curious to see what these strange beings considered impressive technology. "Human vessels," she transmitted, "we invite you to display your technological capabilities." On the cosmic joke, this request sent the crew into a flurry of activity and debate. "What do we show them?" Jenny asked. "Our best technology is the coffee machine that Carlos hooked up to the reactor." "Hey, that coffee machine is a masterpiece of engineering," Carlos protested. "It runs on nuclear fusion and makes excellent espresso." "Wait," Dr. Chen said suddenly. "Didn't you connect the coffee machine to the navigation system last week?" "Yeah, I was trying to create an automatic course plotting system that would work better after I had my morning coffee." Bucky stared at his chief engineer. "Carlos, please tell me you didn't create a navigation system that runs on caffeine." "Okay, I won't tell you that. Does it work?" "Define work." Before anyone could stop him, Mike had already activated what Carlos had proudly named the hyper-caffeinated jump drive. The system, which was indeed the ship's coffee machine connected to the navigation computer, through a series of modifications that violated several laws of physics and at least 3 safety regulations, began to hum with an energy that smelled distinctly of hazelnut. What happened next defied every principle of space-time that the Zephyrian Empire had spent millennia perfecting. The human ship didn't just move through space, it seemed to skip through it like a stone across water, appearing and disappearing in a pattern that hurt to look at and made the Imperial sensors give up and display error. Messages in languages that didn't exist, the cosmic joke, materialized directly above the Imperial flagship, somehow having moved 3,000 kilometers in the time it took for the Empire's computers to register that it had vanished from its original position. But that wasn't the strangest part. The strangest part was that the human ship had somehow brought something with it. Admiral Subcommander Klix reported in a voice that suggested he was reconsidering his career choices. "Our bathroom facilities are gone." "What do you mean, gone?" "I mean they are no longer aboard our ship. Sensors indicate they are now aboard the human vessel." Admiral Vexthara felt her dignity beginning to crack. "They stole our bathrooms?" "Unknown. The humans are transmitting again." Captain Bucky's voice came through the communication system, sounding deeply embarrassed. Alien friends, we seem to have accidentally borrowed your bathroom. We're not sure how that happened. Carlos is looking into it." "It was the coffee machine," Carlos could be heard explaining in the background. "I think it got confused about what we wanted to transport." "Can you give it back?" Bucky asked. Admiral Vexthera stood in stunned silence. In 3,000 years of Imperial expansion, no enemy had ever managed to steal their bathroom facilities. She wasn't even sure if there was a protocol for this situation. "Admiral," Science Officer Zeph whispered, "how did they transport solid matter without triggering our shields? More importantly," added Tactical Officer Grix, "why did they take our bathrooms?" The answer came from the human ship. "We figured you might need to use the facilities after all this excitement," Captain Bucky explained helpfully. "You're welcome to come over and use ours. We've got plenty of toilet paper." The bridge of the Eternal Glory fell into what could only be described as stunned silence. The concept of offering bathroom facilities to potential enemies was so far outside Imperial protocol that the computers started displaying error messages again. They are inviting us to use their sanitation facilities. The communication officer reported, unnecessarily, as a gesture of hospitality. Science Officer Zeph added, sounding like he was trying to convince himself. Admiral Vexithera realized she was facing a diplomatic crisis unlike any in Imperial history. The humans had somehow managed to steal their bathrooms, demonstrate impossible technology, and offer toilet paper all in the same gesture. Worse, she actually did need to use the facilities after 4 hours of first contact stress. "This is highly irregular," she announced to her crew. "Should we decline their offer?" asked Sub-Commander Clix. Vexithara considered her options. She could maintain Imperial dignity and suffer in silence, or she could accept the, humans' bizarre hospitality and face the reality that she was about to become the first Imperial Admiral in history to use alien bathroom facilities. Her bladder made the decision for her. "Prepare a diplomatic shuttle," she ordered, "and someone please figure out how they did that." "Which part?" asked Science Officer Zeph. "Any of it." As Admiral Vexithara prepared for what would certainly be the strangest diplomatic meeting in galactic history, Captain Bucky was busy instructing his crew on proper alien bathroom etiquette. "Remember," he told them seriously, "we want to make a good impression. Make sure there's fresh toilet paper and someone please hide Carlos's engineering magazines." "Why my magazines?" Carlos protested. "Because they're all about nuclear reactor maintenance and that might be weird bathroom reading for aliens." Dr. Chen looked up from her medical scanner. "Should I be concerned that we're about to have alien visitors and our best diplomatic protocol is bathroom hospitality?" "Hey," Bucky replied, "everyone needs to use the bathroom. It's the universal common ground." He had no idea how right he was about to be proven. Admiral Vexithara had never imagined that her first diplomatic meeting with an unknown species would begin in a bathroom. But life had a way of surprising even the most experienced military commanders. The human facilities were surprisingly clean, though decorated with what appeared to be motivational posters featuring small Earth animals accompanied by encouraging phrases like "hang in there" and "you've got this." "Interesting cultural artifacts," she murmured to herself, studying a poster of a kitten dangling from a tree branch. When she emerged from the bathroom, she found Captain Bucky waiting with a steaming mug and a smile that seemed to be his default expression. "Coffee?" he offered. "Carlos makes the best coffee in this sector of the galaxy, probably because it's literally powered by nuclear fusion." Vexthara accepted the mug cautiously. Imperial protocol suggested testing all alien substances for toxicity, but the smell was actually quite pleasant. "You fuel your beverages with nuclear energy?" "Just the coffee machine," Bucky explained as if this was perfectly normal. Carlos got creative with the power systems. "Everything on this ship runs on improvisation and enthusiasm." The Admiral took a tentative sip and felt her secondary eyes widen in surprise. The coffee was actually excellent. "This is quite good, thanks. We've been working on getting the reactor-to-flavor ratio just right for months." As they walked through the human ship, Vexthara noted the complete absence of what she would consider proper military organization. Crew members seemed to wander freely between stations, offering suggestions and assistance regardless of their official duties. The walls were covered with personal photographs, drawings that appeared to be created by children, and more motivational posters featuring Earth animals. "Is this your command center?" she asked as they entered what the humans called the bridge. "Yep. Everyone, this is Admiral Vexthara from the big fancy ships. Admiral, meet the crew." The introductions that followed were unlike any diplomatic protocol in Imperial history. Dr. Chen explained her medical training while showing off her collection of houseplants that she somehow kept alive in space. Carlos enthusiastically described his engineering philosophy, which seemed to consist of, "If it's not supposed to work but does anyway, don't question it." Jenny demonstrated the communication system by playing what she called the good elevator music, and Mike offered to show the Admiral his collection of Earth video games. "Your crew seems very informal," Vexithara observed. "We prefer friendly," Bucky replied. "Life's too short to spend it being serious all the time." An hour later, Admiral Vexithara found herself back on the Imperial flagship, trying to explain to her senior staff why she had spent the morning drinking nuclear-powered coffee with aliens who used bathroom humor as a diplomatic icebreaker. "They invited us to formal negotiations," she announced to the assembled officers. On their ship, is that wise? Asked Sub-Commander Clicks. We know nothing about their customs or protocols. Actually, Vexithara said slowly, I think that might be the point. They don't seem to have formal protocols. They just wing it. Science Officer Zeph looked horrified. No protocols? How do they maintain order? How do they make decisions? How do they prevent chaos? I'm not entirely sure they do prevent chaos, the Admiral admitted. They seem to embrace it. The formal negotiations, held in what the humans called the conference room, but which appeared to be their dining area with the table cleared off, began exactly as Admiral Vexthara expected, completely unlike anything in her training. The Imperial delegation arrived with a comprehensive, 847-page treaty printed on the finest diplomatic materials and encoded in 17 different mathematical languages to ensure precision and eliminate ambiguity. The document covered everything from trade agreements to territorial boundaries, cultural exchange protocols to environmental protection standards. Captain Bucky looked at the massive document, flipped through a few pages, and then reached into his pocket and pulled out a napkin. On it, he had written in what appeared to be condiment, "Let's be space buddies," followed by a crude but cheerful drawing of a smiley face. "This is our counter-proposal," he announced proudly. Science Officer Zeph stared at the napkin. "This appears to be a pictographic representation of friendship with emotional context indicators." "It's a smiley face," Dr. Chen explained helpfully. "But what does it mean?" asked Sub-Commander Clicks. "It means we want to be friends," Bucky said. "You know, hang out, share technology, help each other out when things get tough. Basic friendship stuff." The Imperial officers exchanged glances. They had spent the morning running the napkin through every analysis system on the ship. The computers had worked for 6 hours trying to decode what they assumed was a complex symbolic language representing humanity's most sophisticated diplomatic position. "Your computers analyzed a smiley face for 6 hours?" Dr. Chen asked, trying not to laugh. "The emotional context seemed significant," Science Officer Zeph defended. "The precise curve of the mouth indicator suggested specific cultural meanings that required careful interpretation." "It just means we're happy," Mike explained. "Happy faces mean happiness. It's not complicated, but it was about to get complicated because Jenny had been tinkering with the ship's computer systems again. "Hey, Captain," she called from her station. "I think I accidentally connected our computer to theirs when I was trying to boost the Wi-Fi signal." "Is that bad?" Bucky asked. "Well, our computer just learned how to send emails, and I think theirs just discovered memes." What followed was what Imperial historians would later record as the Great Cultural Information Exchange Incident. The human computer, which was essentially a collection of salvaged parts held together by optimism and electrical tape, began sharing Earth's cultural database with the Empire's most advanced artificial intelligence, the Imperial AI, designed to process complex mathematical theorems and military strategies, suddenly found itself overwhelmed with cat videos, internet jokes, and something called distracted boyfriend memes. Meanwhile, the human computer gained access to the Empire's vast database of scientific knowledge and immediately began using it to optimize their coffee machine's fusion reactor. "Admiral," reported the Imperial communication officer, his voice strained. "Our main computer is asking if we want to see something funny and appears to be preparing to show us a video of Earth animals wearing costumes." "Is that bad?" Vexithera asked. "Unknown. The computer has never asked us if we wanted to see something funny before." On the human ship, Carlos was staring at his engineering console in amazement. "Guys, their computer just taught our coffee machine how to manipulate quantum foam. I think our espresso is now technically existing in multiple dimensions. Does it taste better?" Bucky asked practically. "Remarkably, yes." Dr. Chen looked up from her medical station, where she was reviewing thousands of years of alien medical knowledge that had just been downloaded into her plant care app. "I think we accidentally started a cultural exchange program. Is that good or bad?" Mike asked. Before anyone could answer, the Imperial flagship's communication system activated, and Admiral Vexithera's voice filled the room. But instead of her usual formal diplomatic tone, she sounded different. "Captain Bucky," she said, and there was something that might have been amusement in her voice. "Our computer just showed us a video of a small Earth creature called a puppy falling asleep in a bowl of food. Our tactical officer has been making what you call all sounds for the past 10 minutes. Did you like it?" Bucky asked. Against all logic and military protocol, yes. Yes, we did. Sub-Commander Clix could be heard in the background saying, "Show them the one with the kitten and the yarn again." Admiral Vexithara realized that in the span of 6 hours, first contact with humanity had resulted in the theft of their bathroom facilities, the corruption of their AI with cute animal videos, and the complete abandonment of 3,000 years of diplomatic protocol. Somehow this felt like progress. "Captain Bucky," she said formally, "the Zephyrian Empire accepts your napkin treaty." "Sweet," Bucky replied. "Want to see if we can get both our computers to play that game where you try to keep a virtual pet alive?" "Our computer is capable of managing the entire Imperial fleet," Science Officer Zeph protested weakly. "Yeah, but can it keep a Tamagotchi alive for more than a week?" There was a long pause. Then Admiral Vexithara's voice came through the communication system. "Challenge accepted." And that was how the Zephyrian Empire accidentally discovered that the key to interstellar diplomacy wasn't complex treaties or military might. It was the universal appeal of cute animals and the shared frustration of trying to keep virtual pets from dying of neglect. 2 weeks into what Admiral Vexithara had started calling the human situation, the Zephyrian Empire received an urgent transmission from the Outer Rim territories. The message was brief, desperate, and entirely predictable. The Krog Federation had launched another assault on Imperial mining colonies. The Krog had been the Empire's primary military concern for over 3 centuries. They were a warrior species that communicated primarily through growling, settled disputes through ritual combat, and considered peaceful negotiation to be a phrase in an alien language that roughly translated to cowardly nonsense. "Admiral," reported Sub-Commander Clix, "the Krog have taken the Zelian system. They are demanding tribute and threatening to advance further into Imperial space." Vexithara sighed, a sound that had become increasingly common since meeting the humans. "Prepare the fleet for— Wait!" Captain Bucky's voice crackled through the communication system. "Did you say someone's causing trouble?" "We can help." The Admiral paused. In the 2 weeks since first contact, the humans had helped with several Imperial problems. They had helped optimize the fleet's energy systems by teaching the computers about something called power napping. They had helped improve crew morale by introducing the concept of Casual Friday to military protocols. They had helped enhance diplomatic relations by sending fruit baskets to neighboring systems, though no one was quite sure why fruit baskets were considered diplomatic gifts. "Captain Bucky," Vexithara said carefully, "this is a military matter. The Krog Federation has been our enemy for centuries. They are a warrior species that respects only strength and violence." "Oh, they sound hangry." Dr. Chen's voice joined the conversation. "Have they tried eating something? Low blood sugar can make anyone grumpy." "The Krog do not suffer from nutritional deficiencies," Science Officer Zeph replied automatically. "They are simply an inherently aggressive species with a culture built around conquest and domination." "Yeah, definitely hangry," Mike's voice added. "My little brother gets like that when he skips lunch, Admiral." Vexithara realized that the humans were about to volunteer for something that would likely result in either galactic peace or the complete destruction of everything she held dear, possibly both. "Absolutely not," she said firmly. "Humans, I forbid you from interfering with Krog military operations." "Oh, come on," Bucky pleaded. "We're good at helping. Remember when we helped you optimize your computer systems? Your help resulted in our main computer developing an addiction to cat videos and refusing to process tactical data until it had seen at least 12 cute animal pictures per hour. But it's much happier now," Jenny pointed out. "And happiness improves performance. The computer asked for a vacation last week. See? Better work-life balance." Despite her direct orders, Admiral Vexithara was not surprised when her sensors detected the human ship heading toward Krog space 6 hours later. She was, however, surprised when Captain Bucky sent a message explaining their plan. "We're going to invite everyone to a cook-off," Bucky announced cheerfully. "Nothing settles disputes like a good food competition. We're bringing our portable kitchen and enough ingredients to feed both fleets. They are going to die," Sub-Commander Clix observed matter-of-factly. "Horribly," agreed Tactical Officer Grix. "Should we follow them?" asked Science Officer Zeph. Admiral Vexithara considered her options. She could follow Imperial protocol and let the humans face the consequences of their naive optimism, Or she could abandon 3,000 years of military tradition and risk her career on the slim chance that humanity's bizarre approach to conflict resolution might actually work. Prepare the fleet, she ordered. If we're going to witness the most spectacular diplomatic disaster in galactic history, we might as well have a good view. The scene that greeted the Imperial fleet in Krog space defied every principle of military strategy that Admiral Vexthera had ever learned. The humans had somehow convinced both the Krog War fleet and the Imperial Defense Forces to form a rough circle around what appeared to be a hastily constructed space kitchen. Captain Bucky was floating between the ships in an environmental suit, apparently giving cooking instructions to warriors who had spent their entire lives perfecting the art of violence. Okay, everyone. His voice carried across the communication channels. Remember, the secret to good stew is patience and proper seasoning. Commander Thrak, try adding just a pinch more of that spice we brought from Earth. Commander Thrak of the Krog Federation, a being whose previous idea of cuisine was whatever I can catch and eat raw, was carefully measuring spices with the concentration usually reserved for targeting enemy ships. The flavor profile is becoming more complex, Thrak growled, his voice carrying what might have been satisfaction. This earth spice, called paprika, enhances the protein without overwhelming the base flavors. Excellent, Bucky replied. Now, Imperial Team Alpha, how's your souffle coming along? Sub-Commander Clix's voice came through the communication system, sounding embarrassed. The delicate nature of this dish requires precise timing and gentle handling. We may have underestimated the complexity of human culinary arts. Admiral Vexthera watched in fascination as the most feared warriors in the galaxy debated the merits of different cooking techniques with the enthusiasm usually reserved for battle planning. The Krog had divided into teams, each determined to prove their superior culinary skills. The Imperial forces had responded by organizing themselves into competing cooking units, approaching food preparation with the same methodical precision they applied to military operations. Admiral, reported her communication officer, the humans appear to have modified a mining laser into what they call a space barbecue grill. Is that safe? She asked. Unknown. They are using it to cook something called cosmic ribs, and the Krog are asking for the recipe. Dr. Chen's voice came through the communication system, addressing both fleets. Remember, cooking is about bringing people together. Food is the universal language of friendship and community. The human speaks wisdom, declared War Chief Brutax of the Krog, who was carefully tending to what appeared to be an elaborate dessert. In battle, we seek to dominate our enemies. In cooking, we seek to nourish our allies. That was surprisingly philosophical, Science Officer Zeph observed. The Krog are a complex species, Admiral Vexithera replied. Perhaps we have been too focused on their warrior culture to notice their other capabilities. The cook-off continued for 12 hours, with both sides displaying creativity and determination that would have been impressive in actual combat. The humans served as judges, taste testers, and enthusiastic cheerleaders for both teams. By the end of the competition, the distinction between Imperial and Krog forces had become meaningless as warriors from both sides collaborated on increasingly elaborate dishes. The winner, Captain Bucky announced as the competition concluded, is everyone, because the real prize was the friendship we made along the way. That is the most ridiculous judging criteria in the history of competition, Sub-Commander Clix protested. Yeah, but look around, Dr. Chen replied. Admiral Vexithera did look around, and what she saw changed her understanding of warfare forever. Krog warriors were sharing recipes with Imperial officers. Both sides were laughing together over cooking disasters and celebrating successful dishes. Commander Thrak and Sub-Commander Clix were engaged in an animated discussion about the proper way to prepare vegetables, a conversation that would have been impossible 6 hours earlier, when they were trying to destroy each other. War Chief Brutax, Admiral Vexthara, transmitted to the Krog leader. What are your intentions regarding the Zelian system? The Zelian system? Brutax replied, sounding confused. Oh, that. We withdraw our claim. The mining colonies may continue their operations. We have more important matters to attend to, such as perfecting our souffle technique. The humans have agreed to provide additional cooking lessons in exchange for our assistance with something they call a really awesome space barbecue party next month. Admiral Vexithara realized that a conflict that had raged for 3 centuries had been resolved with cooking lessons and enthusiastic encouragement. The war was over, not because one side had defeated the other, but because both sides had discovered they had more in common than they had realized. "Captain Bucky," she transmitted, "how did you know this would work?" "Honestly, we didn't," Bucky replied cheerfully, "but Carlos's grandmother always said that no one stays angry when they're well fed, and Mike's mom taught us that sharing food brings people together. We figured it was worth a try." "You ended a 300-year war based on advice from grandmothers and mothers?" "Pretty much, yeah. Earth wisdom is surprisingly effective in space." As the fleets began to disperse, Admiral Vexithara found herself facing a troubling realization. The humans had accomplished in one day what the Empire's military strategists had failed to achieve in 3 centuries. They had turned enemies into friends using nothing more than food, enthusiasm, and an unshakable belief that most problems could be solved if people just sat down and shared a meal together. "Admiral," Science Officer Zeph said quietly, "perhaps we have been approaching diplomacy incorrectly." "Perhaps," she agreed. "Or perhaps the humans are simply insane in exactly the right way." 6 months after first contact, Admiral Vexithara stood on the bridge of the Eternal Glory and tried to remember what her life had been like before humans entered the galaxy. The task was becoming increasingly difficult because the bridge now resembled something between a military command center and a social club. Sub-Commander Klix was hosting what he called a podcast from the tactical station, discussing the philosophical implications of human behavior with listeners across 17 star systems. Science Officer Zeph had converted part of the laboratory into a test kitchen, where he experimented with fusion cuisine that literally fused matter at the molecular level. The main computer had developed a personality that could only be described as cheerfully sarcastic and refused to process orders until crew members said, "Please and thank you." "Admiral, the computer," announced in a voice that somehow managed to convey both respect and amusement, "we have received another invitation to judge a cooking competition. This one is between the Centauri Mining Consortium and the Outer Rim Pirates Association. Pirates and miners are resolving their disputes through cooking?" Vexithara asked, though she was no longer surprised by anything. "Apparently the pirates learned about it from the Krog, who learned about it from us. The technique is spreading across the galaxy faster than our fastest ships." Through the viewing screen, Vexithara could see the human ship, Cosmic Joke, alongside 3 Imperial vessels that had been converted into what Captain Bucky called mobile friendship units. The warship's weapon systems had been replaced with communication arrays, entertainment centers, and what Dr. Chen insisted were hug deployment systems, though Vexithara was still unclear about what those were supposed to do. "Admiral," reported the communication officer, "Captain Bucky is requesting permission to demonstrate his latest invention. Do I want to know what it is?" "He calls it a happiness cannon." Vexithara felt the familiar mixture of curiosity and dread that accompanied all human innovations. "Put him through." Captain Bucky's cheerful face appeared on the main screen, wearing what had become his signature expression of enthusiastic optimism. Behind him, Carlos was working on something that appeared to be a weapon system powered by rainbows and good intentions. "Hey, Admiral," Bucky greeted her. "We've been working on a new diplomatic tool. Carlos figured out how to weaponize positive emotions." "You weaponized emotions?" "Not in a bad way," Carlos called from the background. "It's more like we created a device that makes people feel happy and want to be friends. We tested it on ourselves first to make sure it was safe." "How do you test a happiness weapon on yourselves?" "We pointed it at Mike and activated it," Dr. Chen explained, appearing in the background. "He spent the rest of the day hugging everyone and complimenting their hair." "I already do that," Mike protested from somewhere off-screen. "Yeah, but this time you did it with scientific precision," Jenny added. Admiral Vexithara had learned to expect the impossible from humans, but weaponized happiness was beyond even her expanded imagination. "Captain Bucky, please tell me you haven't actually built a device that manipulates emotions." "Okay, I won't tell you that," Bucky replied helpfully. "But hypothetically, if we had built such a device and if it worked really well, would you be interested in seeing a demonstration?" "Absolutely not." "Great. Firing the happiness cannon now." Before Vexithara could protest, a beam of what could only be described as concentrated good vibes struck the Imperial flagship. The effect was immediate and completely unexpected. Throughout the ship, crew members stopped what they were doing and began smiling. Not the programmed expressions of military discipline, but genuine smiles of contentment and joy. "I feel pleasant," Sub-Commander Klix announced with surprise. "More than pleasant. I feel like everything is going to be all right." "This is highly irregular," Science Officer Zeph said, but he was smiling as he said it. "We should be concerned about unknown energy effects on our neurochemistry. But instead, I just want to bake cookies for everyone." "Admiral," reported Tactical Officer Grix, "I am experiencing an unusual desire to compliment the enemy fleet on their excellent ship maintenance and wish them a pleasant day." Admiral Vexithera realized she was smiling too, and for the first time in her military career, she didn't mind that something was completely outside regulation. "Captain Bucky," she said, still smiling, "what exactly did you do to us?" "Nothing harmful," Bucky assured her. "Carlos figured out how to create a beam that stimulates the brain's natural happiness chemicals. It's like getting a really good hug, but from science. We got the idea from studying how people feel when they pet Earth animals," Dr. Chen added. "We basically created artificial puppy therapy. Is it permanent?" Vexithara asked, though she found herself hoping the answer was no. She was actually enjoying the feeling of unconditional optimism. "Nah, it wears off in a few hours," Carlos replied. "But the psychological benefits seem to last longer. People remember feeling happy and want to recreate that experience through positive social interaction." Over the following months, the happiness cannon became the galaxy's most requested diplomatic tool. The Andromedans used it to end a civil war that had lasted 2 centuries. The Rigel Collective employed it to resolve labor disputes that had previously required military intervention. Even the notoriously grumpy Tau Ceti Merchants Guild began using it at board meetings, resulting in the first unanimous vote in their 1,000-year history. But the real change wasn't in the technology. The real change was in how the galaxy thought about conflict resolution. "Admiral," Science Officer Zeph reported one morning, "we have received 17 requests for cooking lesson deployments, 23 invitations to judge various competitions, and 41 applications from other species wanting to join what they're calling the Human Friendship Program." "The humans don't have a friendship program," Vexithara pointed out. "No, but apparently they're starting one. Captain Bucky says they need help managing all the requests for diplomatic assistance." Admiral Vexithara had been offered command of the new program, which officially didn't exist but was somehow operating across half the galaxy. The humans had accidentally created a network of species who resolved conflicts through cooking competitions, shared entertainment experiences, and what Dr. Chen called aggressive friendliness. The Krog Federation had become the galaxy's most enthusiastic advocates for peaceful conflict resolution, though they still insisted on calling it culinary warfare. The mining consortium had started hosting weekend barbecue competitions. Even the pirates had formed cooking clubs, though they still called them raiding parties out of professional pride. "Admiral," the computer announced, "incoming transmission from Earth. They want to know if we need more humans." "More humans?" Vexithara asked in alarm. Captain Bucky's face appeared on the screen, grinning broadly. "Hey, Earth heard about all the cool stuff happening out here and they want to send more ships to help. We told them about the friendship program and the happiness cannon and the galaxy-wide cooking competition network, and now everyone wants to come to space." "How many more humans are we talking about?" Vexithara asked carefully. "Oh, just a few million, maybe a billion. Earth's really excited about making friends with aliens." Sub-Commander Klix looked up from his podcast equipment. "Admiral, perhaps we should establish some sort of human containment protocol? Or," suggested Science Officer Zeph, "we could teach them proper Imperial procedures and integrate them into our existing systems." Admiral Vexithara looked around the bridge at her crew, who had spent the last 6 months learning to embrace chaos, weaponize happiness, and solve problems with enthusiasm rather than military force. She thought about the peace that had broken out across the galaxy, the friendships that had formed between former enemies, and the way that human optimism had somehow made everyone's lives better. "No," she decided, "I think we should let them teach us instead." 3 months later, Admiral Vexithara found herself standing on a stage at the first annual Galactic Friendship Festival. Addressing representatives from 200 species who had gathered to celebrate what the humans called the universe getting its act together, the Zephyrian Empire, she announced to the cheering crowd, is proud to present Captain Miguel Rodriguez with the Order of Galactic Confusion, our newly created highest honor for services to making the universe a weirder but happier place. Captain Bucky accepted the award with his characteristic grin. Thanks, but honestly we couldn't have done it without everyone else being willing to try something new. The real award goes to all of us for proving that the best way to handle problems is to face them together with good food, bad jokes, and the absolute certainty that everything will work out fine. As the crowd erupted in applause, Admiral Vexithara reflected on how much had changed since that first confused encounter with human ships. The galaxy was indeed weirder now, but it was also kinder, more creative, and infinitely more interesting. And if the price of galactic peace was occasional chaos, weaponized happiness, and the complete abandonment of military protocol in favor of potluck dinners and group hugs, she thought it was probably worth it. Besides, the coffee really was excellent. In the months that followed, historians would debate whether humanity,